Hello viewers, in this edition, Papua New Guinea's High Commissioner to India, Tarsi gives us an insight into India, the areas of forging strong trade between both countries, and what's there to gain out of this relationship in the long term. Now, PNG and India have both a lot of similarities, the obvious being the cultural diversity. While PNG has a population of about 7.0 million, India has to deal with 1.2 billion people. But India has gained so much over the last 65 years in areas such as science, education, and information and communication technology advancement. And with the boom in the resource sector, PNG has opened its doors for trade.
Hello and welcome to MTV's Business PNG show. Today we have with us the High Commissioner to India, Mr. Tarsi. So, before we start our program, please welcome Mr. Tarsi. Welcome in our show, sir.
Kiran, thank you for having me.
Sir, as we know, PNG and India has a lot of similarities, including the number of languages that are spoken in these countries and the fact that both the countries are culturally diverse. India is the largest democracy and it has a lot to offer to PNG. As High Commissioner to India, how do you see what we can gain from this country?
Papua New Guinea can gain a lot from India, as India has advanced so much over the last 65 years in science, in education, science and technology, IT and ITS, such as software product development, IT application solutions, agriculture, healthcare, banking and finance, telecommunication, tourism and hospitality, defense and other sectors. India has an unmatched demography with over 1.2 billion population, 53% of which is under the age of 25, and a large intellectual capital base with 3 million science and technical manpower, over 1 million graduate engineers and 0.4 million doctors. This indeed shows that India has the largest reservoir of skilled and semi-skilled manpower. India is one of the economic powerhouses of the world and is a major hub for a lot of international companies. It is the place to do business with strong average annual growth of 6 to 8%. India is not only a place for development work for many of the companies, but it's a region that has commercial relevance. As an emerging country, there are opportunities here to be exploited in the private and in the public sector domains. The exciting part of my tenure here in India is that after talking to engineers, professors, retired generals, India is willing to share its experience and expertise with other developing countries like Papua New Guinea. And this expertise and technology is readily available and are indeed affordable. Therefore, I would encourage our leaders to visit India to seek this assistance, like everyone else from Africa, the Caribbean, Central and Western Europe.
As you know, PNG is experiencing a boom in the resource sector. So what are the challenges and opportunities you think PNG is facing in the resource sector?
The boom in the resource sector in Papua New Guinea is very good for the economy. However, Papua New Guinea lacks the technical capacity to harness the resources boom. We should have invested in an independent geological survey office since independence, as we've had mining activities right from independence. And we don't have the capacity right now to analyze and assess data from the mining companies, to determine the extent of ore deposits in the mines that we have in the country. In 2014, there will be the first shipment of gas from Papua New Guinea. Whether there is some thought being given to downstream or value adding to these resources in Papua New Guinea, in country. Our people, the resource owners, have not been given the incentive to participate meaningfully in the exploitation of the resources. For instance, the fertilizer or the production of urea is a much sought after commodity by both developed and undeveloped countries. And people are prepared to pay top dollar for urea for their agricultural purposes. Another big challenge for the country is to provide credit facilities to our resource owners to enable them to participate in related activities such as shipping, transportation, and catering services to the mines in Papua New Guinea and in the country.
Don't go away, there's more on PNG-India relations when we come back. With the boom in the resource sector, there's a lot that Papua New Guinea can offer to India. And with India's large appetite for gold, this might be just one area to look at strengthening.
If we talk about the metals, then gold is very highly priced in India. So do you think that this is something PNG should look at? And how do you think the two countries can collaborate together in the mining and the trading of the precious metal?
India is the fourth largest economy. It is the largest democracy with political stability and consensus on reforms. Indeed, the appetite for gold is immense in India, and India is the biggest market for gold. We can take advantage of this by granting licenses to prospecting and exploration by Indian companies, provided they have technology and capital to do so. Papua New Guinea can consider Indian companies to own existing gold mines in the country, as allowing Indian companies to purchase mining companies in Papua New Guinea. There is scope for collaboration with Indian companies to invest in a gold refinery in Papua New Guinea, because we do not have one. Much of our gold is sent in a raw form to Australia for refining. Therefore, it is an opportunity for Indian investors to collaborate with companies, Papua New Guinea companies, like the Mineral Resources and Development Company, MRDC, to make this a reality. Papua New Guinea also does not have expertise such as chemists, assayists, much needed for the establishment of a refinery. And this will be an important area for potential Indian investors to look at. Papua New Guinea and India can capitalize on existing synergies to enhance commerce, trade, and investment relations between our two countries. Papua New Guinea can do business with India, as we have the resources and India has the market.
Mr. Eddy, if we talk about gas, the largest gas company in India, Gas Authority of India, that is GAIL, wanted to get into the LNG sector in PNG. GAIL has about 11,000 kilometers of pipelines which they run and maintain in India. They has also interest in Egypt, Myanmar, Iran and Turkey. So how do you see the potential of GAIL in PNG's marketplace?
Kiran, we've had representatives from Intoil, which is the company that is doing explorations in Papua New Guinea for natural gas, here in India to have exploratory talks with officials from GAIL, ONGC, Petronet, with a view to participating in the exploitation of these gas resources in the Gulf province of Papua New Guinea. We have had representatives from Petromin, which is the government company that manages the government equity in all mining and petroleum and gas projects in the country. The prospects of GAIL getting involved in the Papua New Guinea marketplace looks very promising. And I'm very happy to note that we've had representatives from Petronet visiting Papua New Guinea to meet with the minister responsible for petroleum in December last year. And I'm happy to also inform that officials from ONGC are also preparing to visit Papua New Guinea to hold consultations with the minister and the government officials regarding the exploitation of gas in Papua New Guinea.
So we are talking about the relationship between India and PNG. India is known for the success in rural and microfinance sector. So do you think that this is something where PNG should look at?
Indeed, despite the marked differences in the size of the two countries, Papua New Guinea and India, Papua New Guinea can learn a lot from India, particularly in the development efforts and initiatives the government had embarked upon to encourage growth and economic development for the livelihood of the people of India. Microfinance has been used by the government as well as the NGOs, the non-government organizations, to empower people in the rural villages of India to support the efforts towards poverty alleviation. Microfinance, as we have seen in India, has its share of successes and the challenges in rural in India, but it has encouraged the rural population to engage in economic activities. I will relate to one of the success stories of the empowerment of people in rural India. Indeed, this is one sector that is a success story. The Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, which was started in 1972 by a Gandhian activist, Ella Bhatt, to organize women in the informal sector in the state of Gujarat. To date, SEWA runs 3,200 self-help groups in the informal sector. There are close to 97% of India's workforce in the informal economy, of which 97% are women involved in agriculture, salt farming, food processing, handicrafts and construction. Ms. Ella Bhatt, who was the head of the wing of Textile Labor Association, realized that the wives of the textile mill workers were not able to obtain loans because they didn't have any document of identity, which is required by banks. Started this idea of SEWA, and this sowed the seeds of SEWA as we know it today. SEWA is now an NGO that creates self-help groups to empower women. Rachaita is SEWA's cooperative of women's construction laborers which is the only one of its kind in the country. Rachaita has organized 1,000 women who get contracts from multinational companies to build office complexes, to build homes, and SEWA is the biggest impact that women are self-reliant. They understand that their work is worth it, and they can fight the factors that make them poor. It has expanded its services to Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan and Pakistan. This is something that can be done also in Papua New Guinea. I want to tell you that The cooperative movement, it failed in Papua New Guinea, but it is a success story here in India.
India is one of the world's fastest and largest growing economies. Just how did they get to that stage? Find out after the break. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business PNG, and we're talking to Tasieri, Papua New Guinea's High Commissioner to India. In this segment, we draw some light as to how India's gone up the ranks, becoming the fourth largest economy in the world, with a proven track record of political stability.
As we know, India is one of the world's fastest and largest growing economies. A report says that it is ranked as same as Russia, Brazil and China. What do you think? What made them able to get to that stage, and what PNG can learn from them?
Although BRICS is a relatively new organization, but the experience of working together with each other in other forums have been positive and holds promise for them to coordinate policy, which is the real measure of multilateral strength. And this have helped BRICS to win credibility despite its geographic spread. South Africa's inclusion has given it the African representation as well as the perspective to BRICS deliberations. The BRIC countries have huge potential individually and collectively should they combine these strengths, and this should enable them to enhance coordination on major global issues. Indeed, two of the world's large and broad-based economies, India and China, which are contributing significantly as engines of growth, the sharing of experiences on the management of large populations, and the presence of other BRICS members on the United Nations Security Council should help shape and guide the international discourse on issues of global relevance. You will note that BRICS countries are members of the G20 and the United Nations Security Council. The peaceful development of India and China will also act as catalyst to strengthen the BRICS countries as well as the global economy. India and China, as the two largest developing countries in the world, do bear important responsibilities of ensuring the all-round and sustainable economic developments. Papua New Guinea's economy has grown consistently over the last 10 years, with the economic growth currently standing at 10% in 2011. It holds a lot of promise for the future. However, our most immediate challenge is to translate this high growth into tangible benefits for many of our people who live in rural Papua New Guinea.
Earlier we were talking about the boom in the resource sector. In spite of the boom in the resource sector, PNG's agriculture is described as stagnant since independence. The extractive resource makes up to 60% of the export income. So what do you think what PNG can learn from India, and how India can improve PNG's agricultural resources?
Karen, agriculture has been the backbone of our economy since independence. However, the mining and petroleum sectors have now overtaken, and much of the concentration is now in the resources sector. Agriculture is now been played as a second rank. The agricultural sector in India is one of the main pillars of the government's economic policy challenges, which is to ensure remunerative prices for farmers, as well as food security for all Indians through increased production. India is one of the largest food producers of the world, with the total output of organized segment in the vicinity of 34,827 million annually. I can recall the Prime Minister of India's, Dr. Manmohan Singh, in his State of the Nation address on the 63rd anniversary of India's independence in August 2010. He advocated for the need for a second green revolution and the setting up of the Bolak Institute for South Asia and India, which presumably would research newer technologies like Norman Bolak did once at the first green revolution some 50 years ago. One of the obvious technologies that is already available in India, which can now foster a second green revolution, is the genetically modified crops. This technology has made a world of difference for the maize and wheat farmers in India and Asia generally, as well as cotton farmers.
Don't go away. An insight into India's successful electronic voting system when we come back. Being the largest democracy, India has advanced in the development and implementation of the electronic voting system, one area of interest to Papua New Guinea. Let's see what High Commissioner Eri has to say about this.
Being the largest democracy in the world, India is very advanced in developing and implementing the electronic voting system, both domestically and internationally. PNG has a population of about 7 million people, while India has to deal with 1.2 billion people. So, do you think this is something where PNG government should look into?
Kiran, after observing the successful outcome of the general elections in India in 2008, I initiated discussions with the senior officials of Bharat Electronics with a view to seeking a tie-up with Papua New Guinea companies to market the electronic voting machines in Papua New Guinea. I have been advocating for the past 5 years, going 6 years this year, that India is the place to do business and Papua New Guinea can benefit from India's development experience. India is technologically very advanced and is willing to share its technology and experience with other developing countries like Papua New Guinea. This technology and expertise is readily available and affordable. In January 2012, the government of Papua New Guinea considered and approved the use of electronic voting machines in Papua New Guinea. The distinct advantage of the electronic voting machines is that the outcomes of the election are known by the general public by the end of the day, and they know who their member is for the next 5 years. The electronic voting machines are foolproof and cannot be tampered with. Once a voter punches in or her vote against a candidate of their choice and his or her political party, it cannot be changed. These machines will minimize double voting, fraud, and more importantly, minimize the cost of conducting elections. The use of the voting machine will also minimize the costs of numerous cases of election disputes taken before the Court of Disputed Returns. There are vendors in India who are ready to participate in implementing what the government has approved.
It is good to know how PNG is leveraging the Indian experience. Thanks for being with us. It was great talking to you. This was Mr. Tarsi Eri, PNG's High Commissioner to India.
And that's been our edition of Business PNG. If you have any comments or suggestions, please send them through to businesspng@mtv.com.pg. And to access our programs online, log on to our website. That's www.mtv.com.pg and go to our Business PNG page. And before we go, do join us next Tuesday for more on the PNG India Trade Talks. This time, with the Minister for Commerce and Industry, Richard Maru. See you then.